Hello. I hope you're doing well. Please take a moment to watch the video. I trust you'll find it enjoyable. And if you do, don't forget to show your support by giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and ringing that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks a bunch. It all began with the tale of a territory renowned for its peril and rugged terrain. Situated somewhere in the northern reaches of the empire, the land was owned by the Boliotai family. The current Duke, Filio Boliotai, is marked by two notable traits since childhood: his striking appearance and his ferocity. He was born with the moniker, the Black Scavenger, owing to his intense gaze that appeared capable of striking fear into anyone at first glance. With his mesmerizing dark eyes, sharp nose and jawline, subtly colored lips, well-defined muscles, and a commanding presence, Filio Boliotai stood out as a figure of allure and power. As one of only two dukes in the country, he held a position of significant influence. Notably, he was also deemed the epitome of husband material, causing many young women to spend sleepless nights captivated by his charisma. With their tasks in the capital completed, they immediately set their sights on returning to the north. However, what truly startled everyone was Filio's announcement that he intended to adopt a child. When his right-hand man questioned if it was a jest, Filio's solemn response left no room for doubt. "Do I appear to have time for jokes?" And so, the story began. A blonde child, cradled in a woman's arms, cast a frightened glance at Filio, her tears streaming down her face. Filio's countenance darkened as he observed the child. Who wouldn't be frightened in such a situation? With a heavy sigh, he concealed his striking features and motioned for the child to be taken out of the room. He queried his assistant about the duration of this arrangement, only to be reminded that it was his own desire to adopt a child, prompting their visit to various orphanages en route back to the north. The assistant further noted that this was a new milestone, to which Filio inquired about the nature of the record. His assistant dryly remarked that every child they encountered cried at the mere sight of him, a feat worthy of recognition in itself. Unimpressed, Filio lamented the lack of action his sword had seen in some time, prompting a shift in his assistant's tone. With a reproachful glance, the assistant remarked on the extreme disrespect of such sentiments. He harbored a deep disdain for his position, unable to comprehend his sudden desire to adopt a child. The catalyst? A recent visit to his friend, who gleefully boasted that his own child had started speaking, joyfully calling him daddy at every opportunity. Filio listened to his friend's gushing with a mixture of amusement and bewilderment, remarking dryly that his friend's mouth might just fall off if he kept talking in such a manner. When he questioned his friend's happiness, the response was a simple assurance that he would understand once he experienced parenthood himself. When queried about his marriage plans, Filio dismisses any immediate intentions. However, his friend jests about wanting to become his in-law, a notion Filio doesn't quite believe. The friend persists, emphasizing the irrevocable joy of having a charming child like his own. Filio, ever the cynic, responds with a wry retort, stating, "Say that after you look at my unbothered face right now." His friend's sincerity touched Filio, as he spoke of the sublime nature of fatherhood, emphasizing the loveliness of children. Watching his friend happily playing with his own child, Filio couldn't help but feel a twinge of longing mingled with uncertainty. Back in the present, Filio inquired of his assistant if they had met all the children in the orphanage. Upon learning that there were only 18 children and they had seen them all, Filio ordered that they proceed to the next orphanage. As they made their way out, his assistant watched him with a sigh, yearning to convey the thought that perhaps Filio should consider marriage, given his status as the empire's foremost eligible bachelor. As Filio was about to enter the carriage, he was intercepted by the director of the orphanage, who expressed apologies for not being able to properly attend to him during his visit. Concerned about the approaching winter, the director voiced worries about the children's ability to withstand the harsh conditions. Filio's assistant observed the interaction with a knowing look, fully aware of the director's underlying request for support or funding. However, the dilapidated state of the orphanage facilities hinted at a lack of genuine interest in maintaining the establishment. As Filio and the director conversed, their discussion was abruptly interrupted by a piercing scream that captured everyone's attention. The source was a small, black-haired girl who was fiercely struggling against a man holding her down, crying out, "Let me go." In a bold act, she bit the man and swiftly fled towards Filio, taking her place by his side. As Filio regarded her, he couldn't help but notice the intensity of her dark hair and the furious blackness in her eyes. The child screamed, "Hey, mister!" Filio, still amused by the little kid's boldness, looked at her without uttering a word. He couldn't help but notice the shimmering blackness of her eyes, tinged with a glint of gold. His assistant, astonished that the girl didn't cry in the presence of the Duke, also observed the striking similarity in their hair and eye color. It was uncannily reminiscent of Filio's own features. The director of the orphanage offered apologies and instructed the workers to remove the girl, but Filio intervened. Calling his assistant, Rupert, Filio directed his attention to the situation. Rupert confirmed that the child was not on the list provided by the orphanage. The director explained that the girl was known for her lack of manners and tendency to cause accidents when panicked. Rupert sneered at the director, accusing him of disobeying the Duke's orders. He asserted that it was evident the Duke intended to meet every child in the orphanage. Faced with Rupert's stern reprimand, the director and the other staff quickly bowed down to the ground, offering profuse apologies. Meanwhile, the child watched in silence as they humbled themselves before Filio's authority. "What's your name?" the Duke inquired. "I don't have a name," she replied. Perplexed, he asked if the orphanage had not given her one. "They called me Nia," she admitted, "but I hate that name." Filio Boliotai stared at her, and he could sense the boldness in the little girl's demeanor towards him. His eyes transformed, turning black with a fiery red hue. He asked her if she knew whose path she was blocking, attempting to intimidate her with his intense gaze and the reddish tint in his eyes. He warned her that it wouldn't be unusual for her to face execution on the spot. The little girl's eyes changed as well, revealing a glimmer of gold amidst the black iris. Unfazed and staring boldly back at the Duke, she met his gaze head-on. He approached the child, acknowledging her bravery and agreeing that the name Nia didn't suit her at all. Pausing for a moment, he pondered the situation. "Leonia," he said firmly. "Leonia Boliotai." "Leonia Boliotai," he declared decisively, assigning the bold little kid her new name. To his surprise, she reacted with shock, protesting that it was too long. Filio insisted that Leonia was her name and bluntly called her an idiot. Leonia, however, argued back, adamantly asserting that she was not an idiot. And thus, the dynamic of their relationship was set. He scooped her up into his arms, informing her that they would need to arrange for an etiquette tutor once they returned to the dukedom. As he lifted her, Leonia squirmed, expressing her desire to be put down since Filio had raised her quite high. Rupert watched in panic, fearing that the Duke might accidentally drop Leonia. Sitting in the carriage, Leonia remarked to the Duke that he seemed to be having far too much fun teasing her. In response, he admitted that he hadn't realized how enjoyable it could be to tease a child. As he playfully attempted to tap her forehead with his pointer finger, Leonia quipped back, jokingly accusing him of looking like a pervert. Rupert, unable to comprehend the exchange, found himself thoroughly confused by the interaction. Leonia Boliotai. The name bestowed upon her held special significance. The family crest, depicting two lions roaring, symbolized their bond, one representing Filio, roaring, and the other Leonia, lion. Introducing Count Canis Rinner, a figure in the Empire, who shares a unique camaraderie with the Duke. Both men were renowned for capturing the hearts of every girl at the academy, yet they were strikingly different from each other. While Duke Boliotai resembled a snow-capped peak, exuding a sense of coolness and mystery, Count Rinner was akin to a sun-kissed prairie, radiating warmth and charm. Despite their contrasting personas, their bond remained strong, allowing for casual and engaging conversations between them. The Count had a habit of boasting about his child at every opportunity, a behavior that had undoubtedly left a lasting impression on Filio's mind. While Filio outwardly found it annoying, deep down, it prompted him to observe his surroundings more closely. On this particular day, he couldn't help but notice the abundance of families, all appearing remarkably happy. This led him to ponder the true source of their happiness, and whether parenthood played a significant role in it. Leonia's question cut through the air, her disbelief evident on her face. "So that's why you're adopting me?" she asked incredulously. With casual nonchalance, the Duke simply replied, "Yeah." Leonia couldn't hold back her argument, listing common reasons for adoption: infertility, volunteering encounters, or resemblance to a deceased child. But Filio's rationale was different. He was adopting her simply because his friend had mentioned his own child. Leonia struggled to accept his reasoning. Unfazed by her dissatisfaction, Filio observed, "You look unsatisfied." Defeated, Leonia questioned if Filio was stupid, to which he responded, "My only child seems to have quite a vocabulary." He then pointed out that Leonia had wanted to be adopted too, which was why she had blocked his way. With a faint acknowledgement, Leonia replied, "Yeah." Leonia, realizing that the Duke had granted her a chance to escape the confines of the dreary old orphanage, felt a surge of gratitude and disbelief. It was a gamble she hadn't anticipated, and she considered herself incredibly fortunate. As she observed Rupert walking back to the carriage, followed by the orphanage director wiping his sweat, Leonia mustered the courage to ask the Duke for something. Leonia informed Filio that the teachers and the head of the orphanage were embezzling funds. Filio, unsurprised by the revelation, listened as she continued, detailing instances of staff members abusing the children and engaging with pimps. Shocked by this information, Filio turned to her and asked if she knew what a pimp was. With determination, Leonia replied that she did, describing them as people who sell others to brothels and similar establishments. Filio was rendered speechless by Leonia's revelations. She disclosed that the orphanage intended to sell off one of the girls and implored him to take action. Filio inquired if this applied to all staff members, but Leonia requested excluding Miss Connie, the only caretaker, who showed them kindness. Filio confirmed if Miss Connie was the woman with brown hair and a broken finger, stunning Leonia with his accurate identification. He explained that he had noticed her care for the children. Leonia further informed Filio that the director frequently hit them when he was intoxicated. Filio noticed bruises on Leonia's arm and inquired about them. She revealed that one teacher had caused the bruise on her arm, while the bruises on her back were inflicted by the director. Leonia firmly insisted on punishing the director. Filio, taken aback, asked if he should kill the director, but she responded with a firm no. Instead, she suggested torturing him until he begged for a quick death. Surprised by her response, Filio couldn't help but wonder if she was truly just 5 years old. Rupert appeared by the window of the carriage, only to be shocked when Filio instructed him to stay. Filio informed him that the orphanage was quite dirty and ordered him to do some cleaning, delivering the instructions with an implicit threat. His directive was clear: clean it thoroughly and leave no dust behind. Rupert instantly understood the gravity of the command and what Filio meant by it. Leonia gestured to get Rupert's attention and expressed her concerns about the need for thorough cleaning. She emphasized the importance of discipline, suggesting stern measures such as using a leather belt on those who don't comply and ensuring strict punishment until they are unable to continue their misbehavior. She also singled out Miss Connie for her kind treatment, highlighting her exception. Additionally, she informed Rupert of possible embezzlement evidence hidden behind a photo frame in the safe. Filio found Leonia's assertiveness amusing, remarking on her spirited nature, which even surprised Rupert. Leonia waved goodbye to Rupert and the knights who were left behind at the orphanage. Even the knights couldn't help but wonder if Leonia was the Duke's hidden daughter, but Rupert remained silent on the matter. Instead, he resolved to begin the cleaning immediately so they could finish the task at hand. As Leonia sat nestled in the carriage, ensconced in a soft, billowing white blanket, Filio couldn't help but detect a subtle hint of discomfort on her face. Suddenly, a gentle yet insistent knock resonated against the carriage window, interrupting their journey. It was Dame Levi Path, the bearer of concern. With a grave expression, she conveyed to Filio the urgency of halting their travels, pointing out Leonia's visibly unwell state. Contemplating their options, she suggested seeking refuge for the night at a nearby inn to ensure Leonia's well-being. Despite Leonia's protestations that she was perfectly fine, Filio, swayed by Dame Levipath's discerning observation, acceded to her advice, choosing to prioritize Leonia's health over her protests. Filio looked at her and observed that she was shaking because she hadn't eaten anything, yet her voice remained strong. Seeing her sink to the side, he realized the toll the day had taken on her. Upon reaching the inn, Filio cast a discerning eye over its facade and interior, carefully evaluating its suitability as a haven for his cherished new daughter to recuperate. Satisfied with his assessment, he gracefully alighted from the carriage, his demeanor a mix of concern and determination. Turning to Dame Levi Path, he issued clear instructions, directing her to make the necessary arrangements for their eventual departure once Leonia had regained her strength and vitality. With a firm resolve, Filio prioritized Leonia's recovery, ensuring that every detail was attended to with the utmost care and consideration. As Leonia readied herself to disembark from the carriage, she was taken aback by the unexpectedly elevated step, causing her to stumble precariously. In a flash, Filio's reflexes kicked in, his strong arms swiftly enveloping her, averting what could have been a calamitous fall onto the dusty ground below. Startled by the sudden turn of events, Leonia gazed up at Filio with a mixture of surprise and gratitude, acknowledging both the danger narrowly averted and Filio's commendable swiftness in safeguarding her. In that fleeting moment, amidst the rush of adrenaline, a bond of trust and reliance between them seemed to strengthen, woven from the threads of shared experience and mutual care. On the other hand, Dame Levi Path was utterly shocked to witness the Duke kneeling, an unprecedented act for him, as he had never needed to do so in his life. Filio instructed Dame Levi Path to take care of Leonia, ensuring she was placed somewhere warm and provided with food. Leonia reached out to Dame Levi Path, who tenderly held her in her arms. Leonia asked Dame Levi Path who she was, and she introduced herself as Levi Path Malace, suggesting Leonia simply call her Malace. Curiously, Leonia inquired if Malace was also a knight, to which she replied affirmatively. Delighted by this revelation, Leonia expressed her happiness at discovering that Malace was a knight too. Malace couldn't help but smile at Leonia's innocence and found her quite adorable. Malace's expression was indescribable, as she beheld Leonia's red and wounded back. Leonia called for her attention, mentioning the water, and also pointed out her bruised back, expressing her desire to heal it faster, as the stinging sensation kept her awake. She confided in Malace that she kept getting hit before her old wounds could heal. Feeling pity for her, Malace gently asked Leonia to close her eyes, as she poured warm water over her slowly. She reassured Leonia not to worry about the bruises, explaining that a little rest and good food could heal anything. Malace then shared a personal story with Leonia, revealing that she had a young brother who often got hurt, which led her to possess medicine that aids in healing. She promised to apply this medicine to Leonia's wounds to help with the healing process. "You have a younger brother?" Leonia asked curiously. Malace nodded with a smile. "Yes, he's a real ball of trouble," she replied. "Always running around and getting himself hurt most of the time. Totally dressed, cleaned, and wearing the cutest blue dress, Leonia presented herself in front of Filio with a sense of excitement and anticipation. Filio observed her, his adoptive fatherly gaze taking in her appearance. Leonia expressed her happiness, noting how nice she smelled and mentioning that she had never smelled something like that before. Malace stood happily watching her from the background. However, Filio's remark cut through the moment. He told Leonia that she was still ugly, which upset her deeply. She asked Filio if she could help with how she looks. Filio replied that he didn't have anything to do with that, but since she was his daughter now, he should still be concerned about it. Leonia countered, stating that he couldn't do anything about it anymore, and that he just needed to live with it. Filio, still refusing to concede, told her that he had never lived with anything in his life. Angered by his response, Leonia retorted that's what it means to raise a child. Filio glanced at his adoptive daughter, Leonia, while she and Malace looked back at him. Despite the tension between them, Malace observed with happiness as the two sat at the table and began to eat together. As the night's curtain began to fall, casting its shadows over the inn, Leonia found herself nestled in the comfort of her bed, the day's tumult slowly fading into the background. Meanwhile, Malace, dutiful and concerned, sought out Filio to provide him with an update. With a somber tone, she relayed the grim reality of the abuse inflicted upon Leonia, describing the repeated beatings she had endured over a prolonged period. Moreover, Malace expressed her worry about Leonia's malnourishment, evident in her diminutive stature compared to her peers of the same age. In response, Filio's countenance hardened with resolve, his determination unwavering in the face of such cruelty. With a commanding voice, he instructed Malace in no uncertain terms that those responsible for harming the children would face severe repercussions under the jurisdiction of the dukedom. He made it clear that he himself would not hesitate to mete out punishment to any individual found guilty of perpetrating such heinous acts. In that moment, Filio's unwavering commitment to justice and protection resonated throughout the room, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness that had shrouded Leonia's past. His words carried with them the weight of authority and the promise of a safer, brighter future for those under his care. The next morning, Malaise helped Leonia get dressed, her happiness evident just from looking at her. Meanwhile, Filio was already dressed and ready. He remarked to Leonia that she looked like a proper human now, prompting her to retort that she was already human and that he should be complimenting her. Unwilling to back down, Filio reiterated that he saw no reason to compliment someone who wasn't pretty. Leonia questioned if he was being too harsh, considering he was her dad now. Filio reminded her that she still referred to him as Mr., despite their new relationship. She reasoned that she was still not accustomed to calling him dad, to which Filio responded that he was not familiar with compliments either. Leonia sulked upon hearing his words. Filio then suggested that if she wanted to be complimented, she should gain more weight and eat more from then on. Malaise informed Filio and Leonia that she would just check on the carriage. Outside the room, she was greeted by two other knights. She asked them if everyone was ready to depart, and they answered affirmatively without hesitation. However, upon hearing their response, Malaise couldn't help but ponder, which prompted one of the knights to ask if anything was wrong. She reassured them that nothing was amiss, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Filio treated Leonia differently than he did others. The knights were bewildered and didn't understand what she meant. Suddenly, Filio emerged from the room, carrying Leonia in his arms. Filio asked the knights what they were doing outside the door. Startled by the scene, they quickly apologized and greeted him with a good morning. Malaise then informed the Duke that it would take some time to prepare their meals. Deciding to go for a walk while waiting, Filio nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, Leonia waved to the other two knights, who had been conversing with Malaise. They waved back, but couldn't help questioning themselves about what they had just witnessed. On the carriage, Leonia held her tummy, feeling full from all the food she had consumed. She had indulged in eating to her heart's content, enjoying the plentiful food that had been served to her, an experience she had never had before. However, her enjoyment was tinged with worry. What if she vomited? She pressed her hand to her mouth to stave off the feeling, but Filio reassured her, telling her that it was fine to vomit with all the roses and sparkles around him. Leonia expressed her concern to Filio, stating that the carriage was expensive and it would be a waste to get it dirty. She also mentioned the difficulty the cleaning staff would face. In response, Filio questioned why she was worried about such things, reminding her that she was now a member of the Boliotai family. To them, throwing away a carriage like the one they were riding was inconsequential. He further stated that as long as she was breathing, they were making enough money to buy another one. Filio began to ask Leonia what he likes, but before he could finish, Leonia interjected, exclaiming how cool he was and declaring that money was truly the best. She found Filio's expression amusing, but then her tone shifted as she expressed her genuine concern about not wanting to vomit, because it hurt. She added that people should be rich in heart too, emphasizing the importance of emotional wealth. The Duke dismissed Leonia's statement as nonsense, to which she agreed, acknowledging it as a phrase often used by the poor to claim moral superiority. She pointed out that he knew how the world worked. Filio looked at her, then glanced down at the paper in his hands listing clothes and supplies. He realized that he needed to buy a lot of things for Leonia. Apart from the necessities, he was struck by how knowledgeable she was. Over by the window, Leonia spotted Malace, who smiled warmly at her. Excitedly, Leonia called out to her, expressing her fondness. Filio informed her that Malace was an excellent knight. Another realization dawned on him. There were many people he needed to hire for his daughter's care. He noted the need for an etiquette tutor, a personal guard, and a head maid. Considering Malace's qualifications, he concluded that she would make the perfect candidate for the role of personal guard. Filio asked Leonia if she had ever tried crossing the gate before, but it was evident she didn't even know what a gate was. She began vomiting rainbows from dizziness, prompting Malace to rub her back comfortingly, as she spilled her heart out. Filio is watching her, remarking on how weak she seemed. Before the rainbow vomit, Filio explained to Leonia that the gate was used to travel across long distances in an instant. He cautioned her that first-timers could sometimes feel sick, because the gate was like a tunnel. Despite this, Leonia insisted she would be fine crossing the gate, only to witness the rainbow vomit shortly after. Leonia, feeling like she was dying from dizziness in Malace's arms, was comforted when Filio removed his fur coat and reassured her that he hadn't seen anyone die from a bit of motion sickness. Though she accused him of being cruel, he pointed out that she was already looking better. He then covered her with his cape and lifted her into his arms, offering her additional support and comfort. He gently tapped her back, but Leonia protested, saying it would only make her puke again. She even asked if she could puke on his clothes, to which Filio responded by asking if she was mocking him. However, despite their banter, Leonia slowly drifted off to dreamland, exhausted from the ordeal of crossing the gate. Filio whispered to her that she was still ugly, but he looked at her affectionately, his love for her evident in his gaze. The Glass-Steagall Order of Knights is renowned for safeguarding the North, having faithfully served Duke Boleotai for many years. They embody the essence of his family's nickname, the Black Beast, standing as formidable protectors of the region. As the Duke cradled the child in his arms, gazing at her with affection, the scene appeared both beautiful and terrifying to the knights. Malace wasted no time and ordered the knights to prepare to leave as soon as Leonia recovered, to which they all responded with resolute agreement. As Leonia stirred from her slumber, her eyes fluttered open to reveal a breathtaking sight. Outside the carriage window, she beheld mountains and caves blanketed in pristine snow, with the faint imprints of horse hooves marking the snowy terrain. People traversed the streets below, their figures moving gracefully amidst the wintry landscape. Leonia was utterly astonished by the panoramic view unfolding before her, the snow-covered roadways glistening in the soft light, casting a serene and magical aura over the scene. Filio remarked to Leonia that the town was small compared to the capital, but she replied that she wouldn't know, having never been to the capital. She expressed her contentment with the current scenery, believing it to be the best for her. Excitedly, she exclaimed about the abundance of snow, prompting Filio to explain that snow was a common occurrence in Boleotai territory, lasting until the spring season. He mentioned that it could be quite cold, but assured her that she would grow accustomed to it. However, Leonia interjected, expressing her fondness for the cold. In the mansion, the servants were in a state of panic upon learning of the Duke's return. As the carriage entered through the gate, they hastily lined up, ready to greet the Duke alongside the butler. However, their preparations were interrupted when a little girl suddenly leaped out of the carriage, shocking everyone, including the butler who had gone forward to greet the Duke. Leonia couldn't believe her eyes, as she beheld the grandeur of the mansion before her. Its size and opulence rivaled that of a palace, leaving her in awe. As she continued to admire the imposing structure, Filio gently lifted her into his arms. Catching her gaze, she noticed a sense of pride in his expression as he carried her towards the magnificent mansion. As everyone greeted them with bows, Leonia attempted to wriggle down from Filio's arms, feeling a bit uncomfortable with the way he was carrying her. However, he didn't let her go, adjusting his hold on her instead. Blushing slightly, Leonia mentioned that she was no longer feeling sick. Filio acknowledged this, indicating that he was aware. Instead of addressing her sickness, Leonia informed Filio that she was hungry, to which he replied that she would have to wait a little bit. As the servants continued to bow before the Duke, they couldn't help but wonder about the little girl in his arms, especially since she addressed him as Mr. When Leonia called out to Filio again, he responded with a questioning "what?" Leonia then reached out and touched his chest, remarking on its strength. Filio looked at her with a mixture of surprise and bewilderment at her candid observation. Within the grand confines of the mansion, Leonia's gaze wandered, taking in the opulent sight of golden railings and majestic lion statues. The shimmering spectacle captivated her, yet her reverie was interrupted by a sobering thought. Reflecting on tales of murder often associated with such lavish estates, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. In a hushed tone, one of the servants muttered under their breath, suggesting that the murderer might be among them. Filio, attuned to Leonia's sudden shift in demeanor, inquired about her apprehension. Excitedly, she sought confirmation of the ominous speculation, eagerly questioning whether any deaths had occurred within the mansion's walls. Her curiosity piqued further upon learning about the existence of a basement jail, yet her enthusiasm waned at the mention of bugs, expressing her aversion to such creatures. The servants, taken aback by the unexpected exchange between Filio and Leonia, remained silent, unable to fathom the implications of their conversation. As they proceeded into the mansion, the butler, Kara, who was following closely behind, spoke up. The Duke praised her for her diligent care of the mansion. Filio then issued a directive to Kara, instructing her to find wardrobe designers and craftsmen and summon them to the mansion. Perplexed, Kara asked for the reason behind this sudden request. Filio pointed out that it was for Leonia, as there was currently no suitable space in the house for her. Kara looked at Leonia, who introduced herself by her first name. However, Filio was not pleased with how she introduced herself. He reminded her that she had a longer name and asked if she had forgotten it already. Leonia, a bit puzzled, inquired if she was allowed to say it. Filio then questioned whether she intended to introduce herself using only her first name. With a bashful demeanor, Leonia tentatively reintroduced herself, mustering the courage to utter her full name. "My name is Leonia Belliotti." Filio's heart swelled with joy and pride upon hearing her acknowledge her complete identity, a moment that held deep significance for both of them. Meanwhile, Kara observed the exchange between Filio and Leonia, her perplexity lingering despite the beauty of the moment. The scene unfolded before her like a delicate tableau, a glimpse into a connection she struggled to comprehend fully. Though she found it enchanting, the intricacies of their bond remained elusive, leaving her with a sense of wonder and curiosity.